Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on when you are watching this. Thank you so much for your patience for video 2 of Health from Day to Days, How to Break Up with Self-Sabotage in 2022. I'm really excited about starting this adventure with you all, if you will. If you haven't seen the introduction video to this video series, of course, I definitely encourage you to check that out. One, in that video, I gave you an introduction to me as a certified health coach and my practice and how I want to be of support to whosoever is wanting to really get some assistance on their health and wellness journey, which is just that a day to day endeavor with me as your partner on that path. And then more specifically, because of what time of year that we are. Obviously, in a new year, there can be many of us that have goals, intentions, aspirations, things that we want to pursue, especially considering what we have all passed through in the last couple of years with COVID-19 and the variants thereafter. And so obviously a new year can be a little bit overwhelming, but on the other hand, it can be a really, really awesome time. And if we have the tools that we need to pass through all kinds of environmental things, but especially us getting in our own way, we're golden. So that's really why I'm excited to start this. So this video is the first one officially in terms of us starting off with the topic. And specifically what we're going to get into is some of the habits, in terms of what self-sabotage looks like, what is it? So this is really just a way to start to step into the pool of what it is and what it looks like and what maybe more specifically will relate to. I'm really endeavoring as well to make this video series one that will touch on through the middle of February. And I want to keep it in between, at a midway point between very macro level and very micro level. Simply because I want this to be something that most of us walk away from feeling like we got some information, some tools that helps us with navigating self-sabotage, self-sabotaging behaviors, self-sabotaging thoughts. So that way, even though there's going to be so much that really changes around us, we more so help our efforts rather than damage our efforts, if you will. If you, though, feel like, well, Dale, I'd like to get a little bit more info on this, or I'd like to hear more about that, or I'd like to get support more specifically from your health coaching practice, please feel free to let me know that. I many times dive into this topic in a lot more depth in either courses that I conduct, small group programs, or individual programs. But again, in terms of offering some resources for most of us to be able to take advantage of, that's why we're going to keep things a high level, but not too high level, so that way it feels tangible and applicable. So to get us started, we're mostly going to talk about today what self-sabotage is and what it could look like in our own situation. I do want to take a moment to congratulate you on acknowledging these behaviors and wanting to intercept the pattern that maybe you're already aware of, that you feel like, okay, no more. There's enough that's changing. There's enough that I can't do. There's enough that I can't control outside of me. When I say can't do, I mean in terms of changing what's happening around or outside of me. But I can interrupt the pattern of me really kind of participating in behavior that can really kind of, create more ripples for me than what are necessary. So I congratulate you on doing that and moving forward into a happier and healthier you. So There are lots of things that I'm sure, making steps on. So it's not to say at the end of this video series that all is going to be well in the world, but I think you'll feel like, wow, I'm that much closer to really getting a handle on things and uplifting and enlivening my situation by these steps. Again, our overall video series is going to touch on or cover is going to be what self-sabotage is, why we partake in it, and how to fight against those destructive behaviors to form habits and patterns that serve us a bit better than the other ones. So what is self-sabotaging behavior? Simply said, it's a behavior that creates problems and interferes with long-standing goals that we have. So for example, and obviously at this time of year, big ones are maybe exercising more or starting to exercise if we haven't been, or to eat better if we know that we haven't been eating so well. But we know there could be things where maybe our schedules are a bit of a struggle. Maybe the demands of our family or others that we're responsible for that maybe is a little bit of a struggle in terms of making our eating better and our exercise a little bit more challenging. But perhaps we know there are things within ourselves, things that we do, things that we think, even things that we say that could be problematic for us. And so this is what self-sabotage is, really behaviors that create problems and interfere with longstanding goals that we have. What are some examples? Well, some of the most common examples are procrastination. Oh, I don't know if that applies to anyone in the back, in the front, in the middle, all around, but procrastination. I know sometimes some of us operate better under pressure, but maybe we create a little bit more pressure than what's necessary. And so at the very least, I wouldn't get caught up too much about like, oh man, I would say just acknowledge, okay, is that one that applies to me? Do I procrastinate, or is that something that constantly shows up in my situation? Secondly, self-medicating. And some of the things that we can self-medicate with could be alcohol, could be drugs, could be comfort eating, and could be even interpersonal conflict. That could be another self-sabotaging behavior, especially interpersonal conflict. That's a big one for me. I many times can over-consider too much, over-analyze, and that process can cause me to pump the brakes more than what's necessary, especially when it's time to act for things that really could be opportunities for me to be strengthened, to be edified, to grow in different things. So self-medicating, these are just a few of those. We'll speak a little bit more about this in the next video, but some main ones. And while these types of behaviors in the moment really kind of seem like they help minimize the stress, I run into something or I encounter something that's not comfortable, and then I participate in or incorporate one of these things into my consumption while it's or a way of doing and being, while for the moment it seems to help, it can actually and ultimately be undermining us, especially if we're repeating and engaging in these things in a regular way. So while awareness is not necessarily enough to disengage from these behaviors, it's definitely a start. And more so, it is possible to stop, if you will, and overcome these things. And then I have some questions for you. I'm going to end our time with this. Some items for you to consider. See if any of these relate. I've got them written down because there are a few of them, and I wanted to make sure that I got each of them down. The first question in terms of, is there anything that you relate to, anything that you recognize in your own situation? The first one being is, do you focus on what's not working in your life and situation versus what is working or is panning out, so to speak, in your life and in your situation? Second question, do you overwhelmingly fear the future, fear what ifs, and fear what is coming down the road, what possibly is coming down the road for you? Third question, Do you have feelings of not having value or find it challenged to recall accomplishments? So I'm sure many of us have been in situations either at work or some other type of work activity, or maybe someone has asked us, okay, in the last 3 months, what's something that you have accomplished? And you might feel like you have to sit on that for what seems like forever. And so I know this is another one for me that hits a little bit close to home because I know, for example, there are things that I'm strong at and I have ability, and I even have some understanding that it has value. But a self-sabotaging thought that many times I have is that I feel like other people don't see a whole lot of value in some of those abilities and skills. And so why even do it in this environment, or why even implement it in this situation? And so what happens is that I don't, and I miss out on the benefit of potential opportunity. Others miss out on the benefit of what I, in my heart of hearts and in the depths of my being, I know has value. And these are even things that I know because it has value. They're even, and some of a result of that is our accomplishments that have come forth. And so again, major one, what's something that might resonate with some of you? Another question, do you criticize yourself often? And can you not accept compliments? Do you have trouble accepting when someone gives you props or calls you out about something that you are or that you do that is awesome? Do you criticize yourself often, and or do you have trouble accepting accepting compliments, excuse me? Do you consistently compare yourself to others and then feel bad for not measuring up? This is another big one for us. One of my cousins on social media actually shared this again today. I've seen this quote many times over the last several years. I'm sure many of you have as well. But some variation of comparison being the thief of joy for us. I think one of the biggest reasons that comparison is the thief of joy is because, what's for us is for us, and what is for somebody else is for somebody else. And so because there are things that are just for me and there are things that are just for them, if I'm comparing my person or my situation to someone else's person or situation, because it's for them and because what's for me is for me, I'm going to be disappointed. And so because it's for them and what's for me is for me. And so while this is hard, definitely a challenge, and it's something different from us being encouraged and inspired by others on maybe a similar path that are maybe further down. Okay, I want to be inspired and encouraged by the principles in that situation, and I want to learn to implement in my situation what is profitable and what is helpful. But a huge one for us in terms of an indicator. Another question to see if you relate to this. Do you chase away relationships? Do you chase away relationships? And if you are in a relationship, do you quickly find flaws and faults in the other person? This is a big one. Obviously, lots of conversation could be had on this, a lot of digging that can take place in this one. But do you chase away relationships? And if you are in a relationship, do you quickly and constantly find flaws and faults in the other person? Lastly, another major one, I feel like maybe the biggest one on the list, although all are quite significant. Do you feel like you have no purpose in life? Do you feel like you have no purpose in life? I say that this one might be the biggest one on the list is because being aware of one's purpose in life is really a safeguard in so many ways. It's like bumpers. It encourages us and spurs us on, even as we pass through the trenches of human life and all of the ups and downs and in betweens that it will bring us through. Having a purpose really kind of gives us something to look toward, even as a compass in a lot of different ways in our situation. And so I want you to know, if you're one who feels like you don't have any purpose in your life, I just want to tell you right now, you absolutely do. I don't say that to ignore your experience of feeling like you don't have one, because it's beneficial for both you and me to acknowledge that that's where you're at right now. So acknowledging that that's what your experience is right now, I just want to tell you that you absolutely have a purpose. Absolutely. If there's anything I'm sure of, it's that. Our next video together is going to dive a little bit more in the specific symptoms and habits of some of these things that we touched on today, and then how to incorporate some new healthy patterns as well on as we dig a little bit more into some of these things that we touched on today. If you have any questions, if there are any experiences that you want to share, if you feel like, hey, Dayla, one of those questions that you just finished with, I relate to this one, or this is how I've been navigating that one, please share those in the comments. I definitely would be helped and encouraged by it. And I feel like other folks too who are watching this video and looking at the comments will be served as well. Thank you so much for jumping into this video. I look forward to seeing you in the next one, which will be on Wednesday.